I guess the best place to start is the beginning. Back when I was 13, I lived on my computer. I'm not exaggerating. While other kids were sneaking out to drink cheap vodka or hook up in the back seats of their parents' cars, I was hunched over a glowing monitor, half blind from staring too long at message boards and multiplayer lobbies. It was lonely, sure. But loneliness is easier when you convince yourself everyone else is living in a world you'll never belong to. Online, I could pretend. I could be wittier, braver, smarter, hell, even taller. No one could see how awkward I was, how greasy my hair got, how my voice cracked like a broken radio signal when I spoke. That's when I met Cal. At first, it was just random banter in a late-night horror game forum. He replied to one of my posts about creepypasta stories, something about how most were garbage, except for the ones that almost sounded like they could be true. His username was simple, _Caliba_13. No edgy anime avatar, no wall of GIFs and sparkly signatures. Just a default gray icon and a handful of thoughtful comments. I don't know why I answered him, but I did. One reply turned into a back and forth, and before long, we were messaging outside the forum. Then voice calls. Then video. It's strange, looking back, how fast I trusted him. Maybe because he never pushed for anything. He never teased me when I stammered. Never asked for pictures I wasn't comfortable sharing, never seemed bored when I went off on one of my tangents about the dumbest stuff. He was safe. By the time I was 15, Cal was the closest friend I'd ever had. Over the years, we grew up together, digitally, at least. I remember his laugh, this low, gravelly chuckle that always sounded like it belonged to someone older. He claimed he was only a year ahead of me, but I never pressed him on it. It didn't matter. We shared everything. My first heartbreak? He was the one who stayed up with me on voice chat until sunrise, telling me the girl didn't deserve me anyway. His first job? He streamed his shifts in a dead-end convenience store so I could keep him company while he mopped the same yellowing tiles over and over, and then, like these things often go, life got in the way, college, jobs, relationships. Months would pass between our conversations. Sometimes a year. But whenever we reconnected, it was effortless, like no time had passed at all. The last real chat we had was about 2 years ago. He'd been cagey, quieter than usual. Said he'd been dealing with family shit. He wouldn't elaborate. His camera was off that night, which was odd, because Cal always liked to be seen when we talked, but I let it slide. I figured he'd tell me when he was ready. Fast forward to last month. I just moved for work, small town, new place, no friends. I was unpacking boxes when a notification pinged my laptop, a Discord message, from Cal. Cal, still alive over there? My stomach dropped. Not in a bad way, but in that weird, nostalgic way, like hearing a song you forgot you loved. We talked for hours that night, catching up on everything we'd missed. His job, my job. His headaches, my insomnia. Somewhere in the middle of it, I asked the question I'd always wanted to, hey, why don't we actually meet? In person? There was this pause, longer than it should have been. I thought maybe he'd ghost me again, but then he typed, Cal, yeah. Maybe it's time. I should have been excited. Hell, I was excited. But something about the way he said it nagged at me. He didn't suggest a place, didn't ask about my schedule. Just said he'd let me know soon. The following week, he finally gave me an address. Not a restaurant, not a cafe, just a street corner in a town about 40 minutes from mine. It felt off. But I told myself I was being paranoid. After all these years, wasn't this what I wanted? To finally see him face to face, so I went. The town he directed me to was quiet, like a place suspended in amber. Rows of brick storefronts, most of them boarded up or closed early. The kind of main street where even the streetlights seemed tired. I parked, double-checked the address, and waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then 30. Finally, I saw someone across the street, tall. Dark hoodie. Standing completely still under the flickering orange glow of a street lamp. Something about him made my chest tighten. He didn't wave. Didn't move toward me. Just stood there, watching, and though I couldn't see his face, I knew, deep in my bones, that was Cal. I almost didn't get out of the car. My hand hovered on the door handle for what felt like forever, knuckles white, my pulse hammering so hard I thought I might throw up. It's not like I expected some Hollywood reunion, but I thought he'd at least wave. Maybe grin that crooked grin I'd seen 100 times on camera. Instead, he stood there, stiff as a statue, under that buzzing street lamp that made his shadow jitter like it had a life of its own. Finally, I forced myself to move. I shut the door quietly. Like I didn't want to disturb something. Cal? My voice cracked on his name. The figure tilted its head. Just slightly. Like a dog hearing a sound it can't place, and then he walked toward me. Up close, the details didn't match my memory. His hoodie looked faded, almost bleached in strange patches, like it had been left too long in the sun. His jeans hung loose, frayed at the knees. And his skin, God, his skin looked pale. Not just pale, but thin, like there was nothing underneath it, but when he spoke, the sound was right. That gravelly chuckle, the familiar cadence, long time, huh? I swallowed hard. Yeah. Too long. For a second, the tension broke. I even smiled. But then I noticed something. His lips didn't move when he talked. At first, I thought maybe it was the bad streetlight playing tricks on me. But as he went on, traffic bad? You look taller than I imagined. Still a night owl? His mouth barely twitched. The words came out clear, but his face stayed slack, almost frozen. I laughed nervously, trying to cover the unease gnawing at my gut. Guess so. You look different than I expected. He tilted his head again, just like before. Do I? Yeah. I mean, older, maybe? That chuckle again, low and dry. Guess we've both changed. We walked. He didn't ask where my car was, didn't suggest going anywhere. Just drifted down the sidewalk, and I followed like an idiot. I tried to fill the silence. Remember that game we used to play? Dead Horizon? I can't believe the servers are still up. His response came too fast, too sharp. I remember. Man, those nights we stayed up until 4, rating, I remember. I stopped talking. His voice had an edge to it now, like every word was being forced through clenched teeth. When I glanced sideways at him, I noticed something that made my throat close up. His eyes. They weren't focused on me. They weren't focused on anything. Just wide, glassy, staring dead ahead as if he was walking a path he'd memorized long ago. We stopped in front of a boarded-up storefront. The wood was rotted, curling at the edges, spray paint half scrubbed away. This used to be a diner, he said flatly. I worked here. Once. I frowned. Wait, I thought you worked at a convenience store. Another pause. Then, as if reading from a script, I did. I worked here too. I worked. Everywhere. Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. Like the words weren't his, I forced a laugh. Well, that's vague as hell. You're not giving me much to work with here, man. That was when he turned to me fully for the first time, and I swear to God, his face didn't look like Cal anymore. It was close, sure. The bone structure, the stubble, even the faint scar on his chin. But there was something stretched about it. Like a mask molded almost right, but not quite. His smile was too wide, his eyes too dull, his skin too smooth where it should have been rough. I'm glad you came, he said, and though it was Cal's voice, I felt ice flood my veins. Because for the first time, I realized, I didn't know who the fuck I was talking to. I barely slept that night. I lay in bed replaying every second, every word from the encounter, trying to convince myself it hadn't been as strange as I thought. Maybe the lighting was bad. Maybe his hoodie made him look thinner. Maybe I was just nervous, projecting all my paranoia onto him, but no matter how many excuses I stacked up, I couldn't shake the memory of his mouth, the way the words came without movement. The way his glassy eyes stared straight through me, and that face. That almost but not quite face, like someone had built a replica of my friend from memory, and hadn't gotten all the details right. By morning, I was convincing myself I'd imagined half of it. Sleep deprivation does weird shit to you. Right? Distorts perception, warps memories. I opened Discord, no new messages. I scrolled back through our chat history, desperate for something to ground me. Jokes we'd shared, links, the stupid memes we used to spam each other with. They were all still there, but when I scrolled far enough back, I found something I swear hadn't been there before, a message, sent from his account, dated almost 6 years ago. Cal, don't forget me, that was it. No context. No follow-up. Just that single, lonely sentence sitting in the middle of years of conversation. I stared at it until my eyes burned, because I knew I'd never seen it before. I would have remembered. Later that day, I tried to ground myself the way normal people do, by looking for something physical. Proof that Cal had been real, that our friendship wasn't some bizarre fever dream. I dug through my old hard drives, found screenshots, clips from our late-night game sessions. His voice on recordings, laughing at my awful aim. His webcam feed in the corner, blurry and pixelated but undeniably him. But the deeper I searched, the stranger it got. Some files wouldn't open. Others played with corrupted audio, his voice warbling and stretched, syllables drawn out until they sounded like groans. And in one folder, a place I didn't remember ever saving anything, I found a video file titled cal_lastchat.mp4. The timestamp said it had been created 2 months ago. I hadn't talked to him in 2 years. I clicked it open with shaking hands. The footage was dark, grainy. Cal sat in his bedroom, the one I remembered, with the peeling posters and slanted blinds. He was staring at the camera, unmoving. His face slack, eyes glassy. For nearly a full minute, he didn't blink. Didn't speak, and then, without his lips moving, that gravelly voice filled the speakers. You said you wanted to meet. I slammed the laptop shut so hard I thought I cracked the screen. For the rest of the day, I couldn't focus. Couldn't eat. Couldn't convince myself of what was real anymore. Had I imagined him? Had I fabricated this friendship across my entire adolescence? Was I so lonely that I'd built a person out of scraps of forums and voices and late-night dreams? I even googled his old username, _Caliba_13, hoping to find old forum posts to prove he wasn't just some figment of my mind. But every thread where he'd once replied was gone. Deleted. Scrubbed. Like he'd never existed. That night, I lay awake in the dark, sweating through my sheets. I picked up my phone more than once, thumb hovering over his name in Discord. Every time, I stopped myself. What was I even going to say? Hey. Did you mean to look like a mannequin wearing my friend's skin last night, around 3 in the morning? Just as I was drifting off, I heard the notification ping. One new message. Cal, you still want to know the truth? My mouth went dry. I didn't type a response. I just stared at those words, the cursor blinking in the silence of my room, and then. Cal, meet me again. The second meeting wasn't my idea. I told myself I wouldn't go. That I'd block his account, delete Discord, bury my old hard drives, and just forget it all. But at 3 in the morning, his message still glowed on my screen. Cal, meet me again. I couldn't resist. I needed answers. The address he gave this time wasn't a street corner. It was an old park on the edge of town. I remember driving past it once, the rusted swing set jutting out of the weeds like bones. I went just after dusk, when the last light was draining from the sky. The park was empty, silent except for the insects thrumming in the grass. He was already there, sitting on the swing. The chains creaked as he swayed gently back and forth. His sneakers scuffing the dirt. He didn't look up until I was only a few steps away. "Hey," he said, and for the first time, his lips actually moved with the word. I almost felt relief. Almost, until I noticed how his mouth lagged behind the sound. Like a bad dub in a foreign film. We talked, or tried to. I asked him where he'd been all these years. He said home. I asked him about the diner, the convenience store, his family. He said, "I worked everywhere. I lived nowhere. Family is gone." I asked him why his messages were showing up with impossible dates. Why his voice came out of him wrong, and he just smiled. "You always wanted me to be real." Something about the way he said that made my stomach turn, like this wasn't about him. Like it was about me. Halfway through, a dog walker passed through the park. Just some middle-aged guy with earbuds in, holding a leash. He barely glanced at me, until his eyes fell on Cal. The man froze, his dog started whining, pulling on the leash, desperate to get away. "Hey," I called, trying to act casual. "Sorry, is everything okay?" The man didn't answer. His face had gone pale. He just shook his head slowly, muttering something I couldn't hear, and dragged the dog back the way he'd come. When I turned back, Cal was grinning. "They don't like me," he said. I wanted to scream. The more I looked at him, the more wrong he seemed. His skin wasn't just pale, it was translucent. In the glow of the nearby lamppost, I thought I could see faint, dark shapes moving beneath it. Veins that didn't look like veins, and his eyes, they weren't glassy anymore. They were hungry. I stood up so fast the swing beside him rattled. "I need to go." He didn't move, didn't try to stop me, just said, "I'll see you soon." I drove home like a bat out of hell, checking the rearview mirror every 30 seconds, half expecting to see him sitting in my back seat. When I got to my apartment, I locked every door, every window, shoved a chair under the doorknob, and then I sat in the dark, trembling, waiting for him to message me again. Because I knew he would, and I knew I wouldn't be able to stop myself from answering. I couldn't shake the dog walker's face, that look of raw, unfiltered fear. Not confusion, not annoyance, fear. It told me more than anything else could. I wasn't imagining this. I wasn't just tired, or nostalgic, or spiraling into paranoia. Something was deeply wrong with Cal, and I needed to know what. The first step was the basics. Name. Birthplace. Anything. But here's the thing, after nearly a decade of friendship, I realized I knew almost nothing about him. His full name had never come up. I'd never seen a driver's license, never heard him mention a hometown. It was always just Cal. I tried his old username, _Caliba_13, again. This time I went deeper, cached pages. Old archives of the horror forum where we'd first met, most of it was gone. Deleted, but in a forgotten snapshot from 2012, I found a clue. One of his posts had a signature block he must have added briefly before removing. A line of text that read, "Calvin R. Fear only feels real if you let it." Calvin. It felt strange to see the full word, like I'd uncovered something I wasn't supposed to. I copied it into Google, adding the name of the state I'd moved to, and then my stomach bottomed out, because the first result wasn't a profile, or a LinkedIn page, or some grainy Facebook account. It was an obituary. Calvin R., age 19, passed away unexpectedly in 2015. I couldn't breathe. I clicked the link with shaking hands. There was a photo. It wasn't crystal clear, grainy, like it had been scanned from a printed yearbook, but it was him. The same crooked jawline, the faint scar on his chin. The same eyes. The obituary mentioned a car accident. Foggy night, late shift, black ice. He'd been working at a convenience store when it happened. The date of death was 8 years ago, 8 years, and I had talked to him 2 weeks ago. I told myself it had to be a mistake. Maybe it was someone else with the same name, the same look, but I couldn't let it go. The funeral home was still listed. A tiny place 2 towns over. The next day, I drove there. It was a squat brick building with peeling paint and an old sign swaying in the wind. The man at the front desk looked confused when I asked about Calvin. You a relative? He asked. No. Just an old friend. He squinted at me, like weighing whether to send me packing. Finally, he sighed and disappeared into the back. When he returned, he set a yellowing folder on the counter. Inside was a single page. Death certificate, name, Calvin R. Age, 19. Cause, vehicular accident. Date, February 7, 2015. I stared at it until the words blurred. The man cleared his throat. You said you were a friend? Yeah, I croaked. Online. He gave me this look I'll never forget. A mixture of pity and unease. You're not the first, he said quietly. My head snapped up. What do you mean? He closed the folder. A couple of people have come through here. Over the years. All said they were friends. All swore they'd talk to him. After. I couldn't speak. Sometimes, the man added, his voice dropping, the dead don't stay put. Some of them linger. Some of them change. That was when I left. That night, back in my apartment, I sat with the obituary pulled up on my laptop, the picture of Calvin, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. I didn't know if the person I'd been meeting was really him, or if it was something that wore his face, but one thing was clear, my best friend had been dead for nearly a decade. I don't have long. I'm typing this with the lights off, every lock bolted, the chair still braced under the doorknob. My laptop is on the floor, screen dimmed, the only glow in the room, because he's outside, I know it's him. It started about an hour ago. A knock at my door, 3 slow raps that rattled through the wood. I froze. Didn't answer, then came his voice, muffled but unmistakable, hey. It's me. Let me in. I stayed silent. Another knock. Louder this time, you wanted to meet. I'm here. I whispered to myself, you're dead. You've been dead for years, and then, through the door, he laughed. That same gravelly chuckle I'd known since I was a kid. It's been 30 minutes since then. He hasn't left. Every few minutes, he speaks again. Sometimes it's soft, coaxing, come on. Don't be scared. Sometimes it's sharp, angry. You owe me. I gave you everything. And once, God help me, once it was my own voice coming from the other side, please. Let me in. I tried calling the police. My phone wouldn't dial. Just static in my ear, like someone breathing too close to the mic. I tried messaging friends. Discord wouldn't open. The only chat still active was his. He's typing now. I can see the notification blinking, typing. Typing. Typing, it never stops. A few minutes ago, I heard the sound of metal groaning. I think he's working at the lock. The chair under the knob trembles every so often, like something heavier than a man is pressing against the door, and then I looked up, there's a shadow under the frame. It doesn't look like feet, it looks like hands. Flat against the floor, fingers stretching too long, bending the wrong way, dragging themselves closer. I don't know what's going to happen when he gets in. I don't even know if this is Cal anymore. Maybe it never was. Maybe I built him, and he built himself back out of me. All I know is this, he won't stop knocking, and I'm running out of time. If anyone reads this, if anyone knew him too, don't answer. Don't meet him. Don't let him in, because once you do, he doesn't leave.